Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, for another Midnight Mirage Classic. And I thank you for tuning in and supporting my channel. So in this episode, what I want to do is basically provide some wisdom. I want this to be very, very simple and easy to understand. I don't want this to be complex, and I don't want it to be confusion. But what we're going to do in this tape is evaluate some wisdom. And this is wisdom that I have accrued from my life experience as a man on this earth for the time period that I've been here. And it's also wisdom that I've, acquired from me observing other people through their life story. And also wisdom that I've acquired from reading the Old and New Testament and the Bible. So as far as where are the sources that some of the philosophy or perspective that I'm coming from, where's the influence coming from? It's coming from my own personal life experience here as a living man for the little over 3 decades that I've been here. It's coming through my observation of life, the observation of other people's lives. And it's also coming from my understanding of the Old and New Testament. And, when I sit back and I evaluate it and I meditate, the conclusion and the understanding that I've gained from it. So those are the sources for the wisdom, that I want to distribute to those listening to this video. So on this earth, whether we are a man or a woman, no matter what our age is, all of us are here for a reason. And whatever that reason is, will you ever ultimately know it in a very direct, clear way? Probably not. But when you live life every day and you evaluate yourself, you evaluate your likes and dislikes, you evaluate what's natural to you, what natural gifts do you have, what natural skills do you have, you will start to see that, there is something very, very special about you, just like your fingerprint is special. And you are the first and last person to have that fingerprint. So that means that there is something that you can do and provide to the earth sphere, the earth plane, that no other living organism or being can. So we all have a specific reason of why we're here. And when it comes to the entire, we'll say, earth ecosystem and the earth system, you play a big part in that. So that means none of us are insignificant. All of us have a significant role here, and all of us play a big part. And the more knowledge of self you have, you'll know more about what part of the puzzle do you play. Because the whole name of the game is just to figure out who am I to the best of my ability, and what is it that I'm skilled at so I can provide that to the earth. And in return, you can have a comfortable life. All right. So, majority of us, we may sit around and think about these things because we don't want to waste our time. The time that you have here is actually the most precious asset that you have. And also, too, it is not that, sometimes you may feel like, man, it seems like time is moving fast, like it's Monday and it's already Friday. And really what I've learned is that it's not that time is moving fast, it's that the time is more valuable than we really think. So it's not that time moves fast, it's more valuable than we really think. So whatever space and time that we're in, we really do want to maximize what we could get done that's contributing to our overall life goal for ourselves and for the life goal of creation as a whole. All right. Because you are a part of a whole, and you can either accept or reject that. But when you accept it, things will play out for you, naturally. And when you reject it, well, we'll look into the path of rejection and what that is. So we're all on this quest, on this journey to obtain power. All right. And ultimately, there are 2 paths. And in your life, whether you consciously or unconsciously know it, the decisions and choices you make, your heart intent, how you may observe humanity as a whole, what you want out of life and how you're deciding to go about getting it, you are choosing one of these 2 paths. It's almost like in the Matrix when Morpheus gave Neo the option of the red pill and the blue pill. All of us have that option, and you're either going to consciously or unconsciously choose one or the other. All right. So what I want to do in this tape is we're going to talk about these two paths that we can take, because a lot of us may be at a fork in the road in our life. All right. And we may be playing both sides of the field. We may not really, have fully committed to, what our real, energy is aligned with, basically. You know what I'm saying? So like a brief example would be, you got some people who, may know, man, I need to, let's say, cut back on eating, certain types of food, but every now and then you still eating these bad foods. Or some people may say, man, I want to start my own business, but you don't want to leave the job. So eventually when you serving those two masters, it's going to get to a point where you're going to get to a fork in the road, because these two masters are going to require that same energy and effort. So they're going to make you choose, which one do you value more? Which one are you in alignment more? Which one are you more in agreement with? The requirements to make it on these two particular paths, which one are you more in acceptance with? And then eventually you'll make that choice. And that's why I say we all consciously or unconsciously are making a choice about how do we want to really achieve and obtain power in life. Some of us are willing to step on other people's toes and take shortcuts, and some of us are willing to be patient. Another thing, I was talking to my brother over the weekend, but no matter what you're trying to do in this life, whether it's something so-called good or so-called bad, it's going to require some type of a suffering. And usually if you have a plan and in the end it's supposed to benefit both you and humanity, then your suffering is going to come up front. Like if somebody trying to start a business, for example, it's not going to be making any money in the beginning, but in the end you will. You know what I'm saying? But a lot of times if you choose a path of selfishness, then in the temporary, immediate, you will be receiving gratification and everything will seem real cool. But in the end, everything will fall. Almost like when we see these guys in the streets and they may be gang banging or they may be into drug dealing or whatever their street activity is. But it's very, very interesting how they all seem to have like that 3 to 5 year period or 3 to 5 year time limit to where, they having these very, very high ups. And then it's this big crash, almost like Scarface. You know what I'm saying? Think about how he was getting so much money and things were moving so fast and it seemed like everything was so good. But then when the end of the movie came, everything crashed down. So, you have these two different paths and these two different prerequisites that go with each path. So let's get a, deep dive and evaluate these two paths so we can see which one we are in alignment with, so we can fully give our heart to one of these paths so we can get whatever it is we want out of life. Because the truth is that when it comes to material comfort and material luxury and security in this life, financial security and protection, etc., you can obtain that by taking either one of these paths. But what you got to understand is that one of them is more aligned with who you really are. And you need to be honest with yourself, and after you be honest with yourself, you take that path that's for you. So the two paths that we're talking about are the path of the Faustian bargain and the path of no sorrow added. So these are your two paths, the path of the Faustian bargain and the path of no sorrow added. This tape is also like somewhat of a part 2 to an older tape I made that's called the path of righteousness and the path of Luciferianism. So we dealing with that same concept, the path of righteousness and the path of Luciferianism. That's in my old playlist. So if you're listening to this video, then maybe go listen to that old one, because that's giving you another angle of this same concept. So from these two paths of power, I first want to talk about the path of no sorrow added. And what does that mean? So let's talk about the path of no sorrow added. Ultimately, the path of no sorrow added is going to be when you're going to put up a lot of work in the front, and it's going to be some suffering, and it's going to be some trial and tribulations, and it's going to be some sacrifices you make. But in the end, you're going to retain your dignity. In the end, you won't have to sacrifice your loved ones. And in the end, you can have all the blessings, but there won't be no sorrow added, meaning that there won't be any kind of guilt associated with it. There won't be any kind of humiliation associated with it. And there won't be any kind of shame associated with it. All right. You'll still be able to look yourself in the mirror and know, I got this all the right way. You know what I'm saying? I didn't take any shortcuts and nobody gave me a handout. I used the God-given talents I was given, that seed that I was given naturally, these gifts that I was given, and I manifested them into something big. So, you know, that's the path of no sorrow added. When you receive the blessings from your hard work and your dedication and patience, and when you've used whatever the Almighty Creator has given you as a seed skill or seed talent that you naturally have, and when you blossom it and manifest it by putting in the work and putting in the years here to turn that seed into a full-blown tree that has fruit, when you do that, you won't have any sorrow added. All right. And you'll live a very, very good, comfortable life here. And so will your family and friends and people that you care about. In your immediate environment, it will be a positive, healthy, good one. OK, so that's ultimately and generally the path of no sorrow added. But in order to understand it a little bit more, I want to give another thing for you to think about. So in order to understand this path of no sorrow added and how it works, I want to give you an example of what I call the Arthur Blank example. All right. Now, you know, your boy Blackbeard, you know what I'm saying? I grew up on the south side of Atlanta. So, of course, when it comes to sports, you know, I'm from, you know, I want to see the Falcons win. You know what I'm saying? If it comes to somebody winning the football or the Super Bowl or whatever. Right. So in this example, I'm going to use the Atlanta Falcons. And the owner of the Atlanta Falcons is it's a gentleman by the name of Arthur Blank. All right. So in this Arthur Blank example, what we do know is that Arthur Blank is the owner and creator of the Atlanta Falcons. OK, so he's the owner of that team. He's the owner of the LLC. Arthur Blank is responsible for getting the stadium built. All right. So right now, the Atlanta Falcons play in the Mercedes-Benz Stadium. All right. But prior to that, we had the Georgia Dome. So Arthur Blank was responsible for the creation of this new stadium. Arthur Blank is responsible for hiring the staff. All right. So he's responsible for hiring the staff of the new stadium. Arthur Blank is responsible for the upkeep and the maintenance of the new building or the stadium. Arthur Blank is responsible for designing the team logos and the team jerseys. Arthur Blank is responsible for drafting and signing players for the team. All right. Just like recently, we just got Kirk Cousins as a quarterback. You know, we needed a new quarterback. So Arthur Blank was responsible at, you know, the negotiations and finding a new quarterback. Arthur Blank is responsible for designing the plays for the team to win. So we already know that the Falcons, he has to hire a head coach, an offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, and they're responsible for constructing plays that the team can use so they can win games. All right. So Arthur Blank is responsible for all these administrative tasks, we'll say, because he's the owner and the creator of the Atlanta Falcons. So Arthur Blank does all these things. OK. But on Sunday or Monday or Thursday, whenever the Atlanta Falcons play a football game, Arthur Blank is sitting in the stands, watching and evaluating the game. He doesn't get on the field. He has done everything that was his responsibility. OK, so understand that Arthur Blank's responsibilities only go so far, meaning that, of course, the stadium, the staff, setting up the concession stands, you know, everything that needs to be done for the actual game day itself. But when the game actually starts, the players on the field have to actually take it from that point forward. And Arthur Blank can only observe, all right, from the stands or observe from the skybox or wherever he is. Right. So Arthur Blank has no influence on, you know, helping the players on the field actually win the game. That's up to the players to do. That's up to the players' performance, the players' preparation, the players' self-belief, the players' ability to be able to work in a team, the players' discipline, obedience, you know, to the plays and the coaching staff, etc. So in other words, it's a lot of things the players have to do to actually determine if they're going to win the game or not. It's only so much Arthur Blank can control. All right. So just like Arthur Blank can't win the game for the Atlanta Falcons, understand that the Almighty or the Creator will not win the game of life for you. You have to develop your creative power and do it yourself. This is the path of power on the right-hand path, the path of no sorrow added. All right. So now what we're going to do is make a correlation between Arthur Blank being the owner and the creator of the Atlanta Falcons and what he was responsible for, now to the Almighty, or what we like to call, quote unquote, God. And now in this point, this may be only for somebody that believes in the Almighty or a divine creator or a quote unquote God. Okay. Some of you all may not believe in that. But for those that don't believe in it, remember this, because your path is the other one we're going to talk about in a minute. But this is for people who, believe or know that there is an almighty creator, and they want to be in alignment with that. They want to be in alignment. What is the goal of creation itself overall, and the small role that you play in it? Like, you want to be a team player to whatever the overall goal of creation is. Because remember, we didn't create the earth. We didn't create life on earth. So whatever the objective is, we're a party to that, and we're a part of that, but we didn't create it. So that means that we're either on the path to learning it, and once we learn it, we get in alignment to it. Or if we know it, you just follow it and you submit to that. All right. So the almighty creator is the owner and the giver of life or energy for the earth plane and the material world. Okay. The Almighty is responsible for forming the earth. The Almighty is responsible for making earth hospitable for living organisms and beings. Think about how we have the sun and the moon, and think about how we have both of them at an equal period of time that we need as humans. Because if we had the sun too much, things would burn up. And if we had the moon too much, things would be too cold. So look at how we have that balance. Okay. Think about how we have the climates and the seasons. How, of course, if you live in a cold, state, you know what I'm saying? Like, let's say Ohio or something, then yeah, your winter is going to be a little bit longer. But overall, here in North America and different parts of the earth, it's seasonal. So think about how the seasons change. Like recently, like here in Georgia, a lot of pollen has been coming out because the winter has been coming to a close and the spring is coming in, right? So we starting to see a lot of pollen, the trees are budding, etc. So you got a lot of this yellow dust everywhere. But think about how in the spring you have also a rain season to make sure that not too much of this pollen doesn't accumulate. And then, now everybody's sinus is messed up and jacked up. So think about how the pollen comes, but then the rain comes to wash a lot of that stuff up. So there's a certain divine intelligence and order to it. Think about your body. Think about how we have how we have lungs. We have a kidney, for filtering, we have a bladder system. You see what I'm saying? We have a heart. So there's this whole divine structure, and it's very, very organized to how you're even able to be living. You understand? So just think about that, and how the Almighty is responsible for the construction of that and the maintenance of it. All right. And the Almighty also is responsible for the creation or the manifestation of man and woman. OK. The Almighty gives man and woman a gift of creative power on earth. Once man and woman is born, the Almighty Creator evaluates man and woman's life on earth. All right. So just like how Arthur Blank, after he does his job with the Falcons and, he gets everybody on the team, like he can get Kirk Cousins on the team, but he can't go on the field and win the game for Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins is going to have to do that. Arthur Blank going to just sit back and watch it. He may want him to win, but he can't go on the field and influence it. It's the same with how the Almighty creates life, and creates the whole environment for us, because the earth is nothing but the Mercedes-Benz Stadium. And he's already put the concession stand here. He's put everything here. But now us as human beings, us as men and women of all ethnicities and nationalities and all shapes and sizes, now we're on the field. You see? And Almighty Creator is now, in the omnipotent, realm of its existence, observing us. OK, so in other words, he's not going to come on the field to help us win. So when you take the path of no sorrow added, you take the life that the Almighty Creator has given you, the blessings and the specific unique things about you, and the skills you have and the talents you have. When you take those things and you go through the trials and tribulations in this earth to grow your seed into a full tree, because the Almighty's not going to give you a full tree. And that's why a lot of people love religion and these false deceptions, and these cults, because those lies that so-called God's going to give you whatever you want when you pray to him. It's not going to happen. The Almighty really has done everything that the Almighty has to do for you to succeed. Even the people that you need in your life. You know what I'm saying? If you take the path of no sorrow added, and you willing to make the sacrifices that you're supposed to make, and you doing that day by day, then everybody you're supposed to meet Everybody that you may need to assist you in your life to reach your goal, you're going to naturally meet these people. You know what I'm saying? Like, it may be something you need, like you may have a company or something you working towards or whatever, you know, and, you know, you thinking, damn, man, I'm trying to create this new tire company, but man, I need a plug on new tires or whatever. And let's say you just made the choice within your heart that, you know what, I have a skill for mechanics and mechanical engineering. I love cars. No, I'm going to stick to this. I'm going to make this tire company one day. You know, I felt like God gave me this gift and this interest. So I'm going to grow this into something big. And let's say within your heart, you really mean that. So you going about your day, you going about your day. Next thing you know, you went to the grocery store, maybe just get a little groceries and breakfast for the next day, right? But then when you in the line at the grocery store, you meet this man who owns a car company. And all of a sudden, he knows how now to plug you in with these tires that you need. And you may ask yourself, well, how did I meet this guy? And some of you may think it's coincidence, and that's okay. But when I say that the Almighty Creator has already done everything, meaning that when we start making the right decisions in our life, then certain doors are unlocked. There's certain dimensions and certain potential realities. They open up for us. Just like on for all my niggas out there that have played Grand Theft Auto before or any video game. You know how you'll have a video game where it's only so far you can go to, like on Grand Theft Auto, you could be driving. I remember the one on San Andreas, like you could be driving a motorcycle or the car, or whatever, in the outskirts of the city to the country part. But it was a certain part to where it was like this, you know, invisible, almost like interdimensional wall that was up. And until you got to a certain stage in the game, you couldn't go in that part of the board or that part of the map or that part of the video game, basically. You know what I'm saying? So you have to make the right choices. And then once you make them and then you know, you open up that potential reality, then you're now able to go into that realm, aka now you're going to meet the tire guy who can get you these tires because you've been making the right choices. You know what I'm saying? So that's a little basic example of that I'm giving. And me giving this is from life experience, you know. So I'm that what I'm giving you right now is more from life experience, things that I've tested and basically certain action from within my heart. A lot of doors have been opened up for me and things I'm trying, but it's because I've personally chosen to align myself with this path of no sorrow added. All right. That's why some of the people that practice the Shemitic culture of Islam, a Muslim is just one who submits. So on a deeper level, all that means is that you just submit to the Almighty and you submit to what you've been blessed with, you putting in the work for that, and you willing to deal with the trials and tribulations, knowing that so-called God is not going to, you know, come down and help you, but you accept that. You know, so if you may have been born in a family that didn't have money, you know, it may hurt sometimes, you know what I'm saying? But you're not going to complain about it to a point where you just quit and give up on life. You accept it, you know what I'm saying? And you move forward, and then you get the reward from that, you know? So that's what it means by acceptance. A polarity example to that would be like Nimrod in the Tower of Babel story in the Old Testament. See, Nimrod was not a Muslim. He did not want to accept what the natural order was, because remember how they said that he tried to build a tower that went into the heavens, or AKA went into another dimension, or in other words, he was trying to go outside of his boundaries. Boundaries exist for a reason. OK, and just like the video game, maybe when you reach a certain level or when you've been given clearance, then you can go into these next dimensions. Or now you can learn a certain, you know, knowledge or revelation or whatever it is you are seeking. But there's an organic process that you go through. You don't force yourself into it. So when you think about black magicians, people that practice different forms of Satanism, or people that are, you know, into occultism, and they try to communicate or contact interdimensional beings, you know, if you adhere to that, I mean, I do, you know, but people that do that, when you try to force to learn certain things that maybe you're not supposed to know, you try to force your third eye open. When you do those types of things, you're not submitting. You're trying to force your way. And that's what Nimrod did when they said that he forced his way by building the tower into the heavens. Yes, they had tall buildings and constructions in ancient Babylon or ancient Sumer or ancient America, ancient Atlantis. Yes, they did have those tall types of buildings. But that's not what the Bible is talking about when they said that he tried to go into the heavens. They're talking about more of a ego Luciferian type of mindset. All right. Which is now going to lead us to the path of Luciferianism, aka the path of the Faustian Pact. So, you always saying, well, Blackbeard, what is the Faustian Pact? I hear you using this term. The Faustian Pact, or the Faustian bargain, is when a person exchanges something of supreme moral value for a material benefit. The concept is based on the medieval legend of Faust, who traded his soul to the devil in return for knowledge and power. All right. So and I got this from basic Wikipedia, so you can just understand the general concept. But the Faustian bargain is when a person exchanges something of supreme moral value for material benefit. OK, so when we say material benefit, we mean something that's of this temporal earth realm. And a lot of the times it equates material comfort, material luxury, and security. All right. Things to satisfy the self, basically. Things that are more about your individual microcosmic world, and maybe not so much about the macrocosmic environment. So in other words, when a lot of your intentions and your objectives is more so to seek to, please yourself, basically. And you may even be willing to step on the toes of others. Or maybe like Nimrod, where you want to force your way into something. OK, you want to get an Ouija board, or, you want to force your way to figure out what's my future going to be like. Once again, like if human beings weren't given, the ability, let's say, to look into the future, then maybe we weren't supposed to have the ability to do that. I mean, what's wrong with that? You know what I'm saying? Like, human beings weren't given, wings to fly, but we were given the ability to, let's say, construct aircraft so we could fly that way. But as far as us having wings on our back, we weren't given abilities that way. So when it comes to, some of these things that these occultists and some of these scientists are into, these Luciferians, they're into things and trying to do things that, you're going beyond your boundary now. And when you do this, a lot of the times, these are the people that seek out a Faustian bargain. And now when the Faustian bargain is made, because as you see, it says it's generally known as the deal with the devil, that proverbial deal with the devil. Like when we hear about these entertainers and people of this, modern United States society that want to climb the ladder, either in the corporate world or some organization or, whatever environment that they may be in, whatever social realm they want to be in. But they want to ascend. They want to, climb and get higher. A lot of them would do these quote unquote deals. So when we're talking about the deal with the quote unquote devil or the adversary, we could be talking about doing a deal with another human being or a group of human beings or a corporation owned by human beings. Or it could even be, if a person is on a, deeper level, higher level of thinking, they may say, nah, I want to try to contest something that's interdimensional, malefic, and it's in alignment with, a Luciferian desire, meaning that it thinks the same way I do. So whenever you think about these people that may do a quote unquote deal with the devil, remember the devil has selfish intent as well. Whether that devil is a human being or whether that devil is something you can't see, but it has its own goals too. So it's not showing up just to help you because it thinks that, you're its Lord. It actually may think it's higher than you, but it may think that you're in a vulnerable position or you're in a desperate position. So it's showing up because this is a form of manipulation. This is a form of, catching you when you down. And they're going to now be able to make you give up the most valuable thing you have. So you'll receive something in return that you may need for the present moment. But in the long run, you really wouldn't need to give it up like that. An example of that would be like in the Bible where it talks about Jacob and Esau and how Esau was hungry at that current moment in time. And he traded his birthright, aka something that was perpetual or long term. And the blessing that came with that, how he traded something long term for something short term. Because after he ate the bowl of lentil soup and he satisfied his stomach, yeah, it was satisfied for that time period, but he may have gotten hungry, let's say 2 hours later. But he traded the most valuable thing he had, which was the birthright, aka the soul. So, That's what the Faustian bargain is. It's when a person exchanges something of supreme moral value. That supreme moral value could be your soul, your energy, your spirit. It could be your self-esteem, your self-confidence, your dignity, you know, everything that you're using basically to be this powerful human being. Because remember earlier in the tape, I talked about how the Almighty gave all of us some type of creative power. All right. And with that, there is self-esteem that comes from that. So usually in the Faustian bargain, that's the most, that is the most valuable thing you have, actually, you know, the access to your soul essence, because it's not like you're actually going to give your energy up or give your so-called soul or spirit up. It's not really that. What it is more so you align yourself with certain desires, and really you allow something else to manipulate you, even if that something else is your own lower self, your own fearful self, your own selfishness. Your own selfishness can be a demon that you've done a Faustian bargain with. So it's not necessarily even something outside of you. You can do a Faustian bargain with your own gluttony, your own lust, your own perversions. All right. So the path of the Faustian bargain is the path taken to avoid being accountable for your own trials and tribulations. The path taken when you want to take a shortcut to success. The path taken when one is impatient. The path taken when one worships material luxury, material comfort, and material or financial security. The path taken when one seeks knowledge to dominate others. The path taken by those who force themselves into the unseen world. All right. So what I'm going to do right now, because remember, I told you that a lot of this wisdom that I got, you know, it came from the scripture. So what we're going to do right now is read in Matthew chapter 4, and we'll talk about how the prophet Yeshua was provided the Faustian bargain when he was in a time of desperation. And there was a tempter that revealed itself to him, somebody who had wisdom, but they used their wisdom for in a more manipulative way. They like to catch people when they down bad and then try to offer them something in that position. All right. So let's, you know, just briefly read about that so some of the people can get an understanding. All right. So right now we in Matthew chapter 4. So it says, then was Yeshua led up to the Spirit. Excuse me. Then Yeshua was led up of the Spirit into the wilderness to be tempted of the devil. And when he had fasted 40 days and 40 nights, he was afterwards hungry. So remember, I told you, like, it's always when you vulnerable or in a down bad situation, you know, your money may be messed up, you homeless, your back is against the wall, you know, nobody's there to help you. It's like you feel vulnerable. So in this situation, Yeshua, he had been fasting, so he was very, very hungry. All right. That's usually when the tempter shows up. It says that, and when he had fasted 40 days and 40 nights, he was afterwards hungry. And when the tempter came to him, he said, if you be the Son of God, command these stones be made bread. But he answered and said, it is written, man should not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceeded out the mouth of God. Then the devil took him up into the holy city and set him on a pinnacle of the temple. And he said unto him, if you be the Son of God, cast yourself down, for it is written, he shall give the angels charge concerning you. And Yeshua said to him, it is written again, thou shalt not tempt the Lord Almighty. So as we can see right now, what's happening is that this tempter, you know, he's trying different things to see what will Yeshua been for? What can I psychologically or emotionally attack him with? All right. So first he tried to attack him with, you know, well, turn this into bread, you know. And of course, Yeshua, you know, he denied it. He rejected him. So now what's going to happen is that the tempter is going to pull out his best thing. And his best thing is to exalt your ego and to make it as if you are God. All right. That's going to be his last thing. When he see that you ain't going for nothing else, then the last thing that the Satan or the adversary is going to offer you is going to be material luxury, material comfort, and financial security. When he sees that it's really nothing else that you value, this is what he'll pull out. All right. And it continues and it says, again, the devil took him up into an exceeding high mountain and showed him all the kingdoms of the world and the glory of them, and said unto him, all these things will I give you if you will fall down and worship me. Then Yeshua said unto him, get thee, Satan, for it is written, thou shalt worship the Lord Almighty, and him only shall you serve. Then the devil left him, and behold, angels came and ministered unto him. So what we see here, what finally ended up happening, was the Faustian bargain was offered to Yeshua. And he told him, he said, look, he took him to the highest mountain. He showed him all the cities and kingdoms and empires of that day. He showed him sitting on a throne wearing a crown, jewels. He showed him with all the women, all the happiness, all the comfort, the luxury. He showed Yeshua this in a vision, you see. And he told him, he said, all this I will give you. All the influence and power that I have and control I have, I will use it to benefit you and exalt you in a position as a king. If all you would do is bow down and serve me, aka make yourself vulnerable to me, give in to the lower self, give in to the path of selfishness. And of course, Yeshua rejected him. All right. So that's an example of the Faustian bargain, to where the prophet Yeshua, you know, he was in a vulnerable state. He was very hungry, and how the bargain was even offered to him. So think about it. So if the prophet Yeshua, if the Faustian bargain was offered to him, and if the tempter, you know, caught him when he was in a down bad state, he was hungry. If that could happen to the prophet Yeshua, then who are you and I? So this is why we have to watch some of the things we say and some of the energy we put out, because we don't want to attract a manipulator, a devil, a demon, or a deceiver in the form of a human being, a malefic or a wicked serpent. We don't want to attract that when we're down bad, because it's going to have all the chips and the leverage over you. And it's going to take a lot of strength to reject that. All right. So that is a situation where you had an Israelite man reject the Faustian bargain. So now what we want to do is we want to evaluate a situation where you had someone accept the Faustian bargain. All right. So Yeshua rejected the Faustian bargain. And now we're going to look into how Eve and Adam accepted the Faustian bargain. All right. So that's going to be our next evaluation, going to Genesis chapter 3. OK, Genesis chapter 3. So it says, so these are the key points we're going to look at. We're going to look at Eve and the serpent, and a brief explanation on what is the serpent. We're going to talk about being naked, ashamed, humiliated, soulless, that feeling of a spiritual void within, low self-esteem, and how taking the Faustian bargain, it leads to you being humiliated. It leads to you being open and vulnerable. And these lower vibrational humans, as some of these malefic interdimensional beings that you've done these pacts with, they find that to be humorous. So they like to see you in that vulnerable state. Like, for example, right now, Puffy Combs or Sean Combs, probably sometimes in the early 90s, did he potentially take a Faustian bargain where he was shown that he would be made a king of the so-called black entertainment music sector? And he would have decades of success, money, women. But in the end, look how he's being humiliated publicly. You see, think about R. Kelly, how he was humiliated publicly. Think about Bill Cosby, how he was publicly humiliated. So when we think about, you know, especially in the so-called black community, because a lot of us are at this state in time, we've been hearing about these stories about the so-called Illuminati or the Freemasonry. You hear about the homoerotic rituals. In Hollywood, you see about the so-called black men and men of other ethnic groups, how they're forced to wear these dresses. And, you know, they have to do these metrosexual, you know, type of expressions. Like right now, for example, I'm seeing a lot of the athletes in the NBA, NFL, and some of these so-called black rappers, how they're painting their fingernails now. They're painting their fingernails all types of colors. Why are these guys publicly being humiliated? Either consciously or unconsciously, either something that they've agreed to, or it looks like it's something happening and they're being attacked like a Puffy Combs. In other words, why are they being publicly humiliated? The public humiliation is part of their falsity and pact. It goes hand in hand with it. All right. So it says in Genesis 3, it says, now the serpent was more subtle than any beast of the field, which the Lord Almighty had made. And he said unto the woman, yes, God has said, you shall not eat of every tree of the garden. So the first thing is that what is the serpent? All right. Is the serpent literally a snake? Or could this be metaphorical for something else? To my understanding and evaluation and studies, biblically, the serpent is used symbolically in a multitude of ways. All right. And in a real general sense, what you will see consistently is that the serpent is a sign or a symbol for wisdom. OK, it's a sign or a symbol for wisdom. So in the ancient world, whenever you would see the serpent associated with a man or a woman or a country or on a flag, it represented power and wisdom. And when you have wisdom, you have knowledge of certain things. You have information. And the more knowledge and information you have, the better you know how to use it. The greater choices and decisions you can make. For example, Blackbeard, I'm an accountant. So part of the accountant's job is to provide financial information to the business owners. And off of this financial information, they can make better decisions on where they need to invest money, where they need to cut costs, where they need to raise costs, etc. So the more information they have, the better choice they can make. So a serpent is just somebody who has a high level of information intake, a high level of intuition, a high level of perception, and a high level of decision making, a high level of communication. So a serpent is a very, very wise person. So there's an example in Matthew where the prophet Yeshua, he tells his disciples that they should be as wise as serpents and as gentle as doves. So the serpent is a very, very not only wise person, but they could also be cold, because wisdom and knowledge, there's a certain cold aspect to it. It's not like when you get the truth of things, it's this good thing. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's a certain, I won't call it curse for having knowledge, but there's a certain accountability and responsibility that comes with it. Like, you can no longer be naive and say you don't know. Like, you know how they say, quote unquote, ignorance is bliss. See, when you don't know the truth, and you may not be aware of some of the things going on in this society, you can enjoy things a little bit more. But for those of you that may understand the occult or history and things of that nature, I guarantee every time you watch a movie or TV shows or having conversations with people, especially the so-called black man who's of knowledge, he's always reminded and sees things that reflect the historical truth of how, his culture has been, removed. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'll give you an example. I was watching a little bit earlier. It was Purdue versus Tennessee, and they were playing a college basketball game. And after the game was over, I was just talking with someone basically on how a lot of those young so-called black men, all of them may not make the NBA. And a lot of those brothers are, now that the college, year is over, you know what I'm saying? Some of them may have been seniors and they graduating. So that was their last game. And a lot of them are about to go back to the so-called black community, and they really may not know the next move they're going to make. There may not be businesses already developed for them. A lot of their families may not have, direction and guidance for them. And some of those guys, fathers may have not been in their lives. So even though I was just looking to watch a basketball game for the entertainment, I still always end up seeing something that just kind of reminds me of the history and the state of, that I'm in and that our people are in collectively. So that's what I mean by when you have the knowledge and the truth, there is a certain like bitterness and coldness to it. And that's the serpent. OK, so when it talks about that the serpent was more subtle than any beast of the field, meaning that the man that has the knowledge or wisdom is going to be more advanced than other human beings. You know what I'm saying? That's what that means, because the Bible uses beasts of the field as metaphors for nations and people sometimes. So the serpent, it could be a wise man, and he could use that wisdom either in a righteous way or in an evil way. And you'll know that based on how that man is operating. So when Yeshua told his disciples to be as wise as serpents, he was telling them to be, you know, have your eyes open and don't let nobody deceive you. But be gentle, though. You know, don't be out here beating up the people and manipulating the people and using your, you know what I'm saying, high level of information against them to manipulate and dominate them. All right. But then you have the situation where you have this serpent that Eve approached, or rather that approached Eve. And based on the context, this serpent, or this man possibly that had wisdom, he made Eve aware of certain things, but it may have been to ultimately deceive Eve. So this person was using their knowledge and wisdom in a more evil way. You see? So I'm not saying that this serpent is evil because it's a serpent. I'm saying that the Genesis serpent seemed evil based on how the information was provided to Adam and Eve. All right. And let's continue. So it goes on to say that, of course, that the serpent, you know, I ain't got to read all of it because y'all know the story, that the serpent, you know, told Eve that if she bites from the tree, that she will not die and she will have the knowledge of both good and evil, which was true, you know, which was true. But there was a certain deception in it because he told her that she would be as a god. And the way that the context is from it, this was more of like Luciferianism, meaning that not a god with a little g, as in you will be a person of knowledge and wisdom and understanding, but more like an exaltation of your ego, that like you're bigger than and greater than what you really are, you see. And that's one of the problems of the malefic or the evil serpent being, whether that be a man or a woman or anything else. It sees itself as a god. It is because it's selfish, it's narcissistic, and it wants to exalt itself. So that's all the Luciferian is, you see. So it provided that, you know, Luciferian philosophy and ability to perceive life and make those types of choices. It showed and revealed that to Adam and Eve. All right. So it goes on to say that, now this is where it gets into humiliation, because a lot of us wanted to know, well, what is the origin of these humiliation rituals? You know what I'm saying? Like, where does that come from? All right. And it comes from right here in the garden. So it says that and the eyes of them both were opened, and they knew that they were naked, and they sewed fig leaves together and made themselves aprons. So what ended up happening is that they saw their own nakedness. And it goes on to say, and the Lord called unto Adam and said, where are you? And he said, I heard thy voice in the garden, and I was afraid because I was naked, and I hid myself. So that nakedness was a form of like a shame and a humiliation. And they had to clothe themselves, basically. You see, so that public shame and humiliation from them, you know, receiving that knowledge, and for them maybe starting to believe that they were gods. All right. And maybe they started to behave a certain way, and it didn't go the way they want. And the serpent or whomever is the one you made the false bargain with, they're sitting back laughing at you. Just like Puffy Combs right now. They're sitting back laughing at him. Whatever Shriners or, you know, whatever Order of the Royal Jester or whatever Freemasonic group he's in that he signed up with in the early 90s or whenever he took the deal, they're sitting back laughing at him. So after that serpent told Eve to bite the fruit or provided the fruit, when they saw themselves naked and then the Lord Almighty came asking for them and they were hiding in shame, the serpent was laughing at them. That's the humiliation. That's the black man wearing the dress in the movie. You see? That's where that comes from. All right. And then in verse 21, it says, and Adam also and to his wife did the Lord make coats of skin and clothe them. So notice how it says that the Lord made coats of skin and clothed them. So what happens is that if the Almighty still has a certain protection on you, then you will be able to retain your dignity. You see, it's a certain like covering or protection. All right. So the adversary within, because now we're looking at, well, what's your real enemy? You know, you have that adversary within yourself, which is your lower self, your impatient self, and your selfishness. It's a mighty hunter, because also in the book of Job, when the tempter is seen going to and fro through the earth, he says that, you know, he's been going to and fro through the earth looking to see who he can devour. It says that in Job. All right. And when it says that, you know, that the enemy was going to and fro through the earth looking to see who it could devour, it's showing you that the enemy is a hunter. So in the Bible, you will also see that association of men being mighty hunters or men of renown, because being a hunter is a certain high level of serpent wisdom, believe it or not. You have to have a high level of wisdom to be a hunter. You got to be able to outthink your prey, you know, just like the movie The Predator. You know what I'm saying? Notice how the Predator always was going through different galaxies and universes, trying to see who was the top hunter on that planet, because they had a culture to where they had a rites of passage where they had to fight the top champions of other planets. So whenever he came to the earth, he always thought it was the military. And that's why you saw the Predator always fighting the military, because the top hunter, he's always looking to fight against the other top hunter. Or if it's something that's more predatory, or more like tyrannical, then it's looking for something that can be deceived, something that's weak. And when we're talking about the malefic energy that's on this planet, whether it's in human beings or something you can't see, it's looking for people who are weak. It's looking for people who are vulnerable. It's looking for people who are not accountable. It's looking for people who don't want to be responsible for their own trials and tribulations. It's looking for people who are hungry, like how Yeshua was hungry. It's looking for people who are hungry, you see. So it's a mighty hunter, all right? When you take the Faustian bargain, the lower vibrational humans and non-physical beings with bad intent fatten up and hunt those who make the pact. Those people no longer have a covering over them, which is very dangerous. Remember how the Lord Almighty gave Adam and Eve a covering. But when you take the Faustian bargain, you no longer have the covering. And when you don't have the covering, you're vulnerable. You know, and that being vulnerable is being spiritually, mentally, and emotional open. And that allows you to be, you know, open and, you know, able to be possessed almost. You know what I'm saying? And you're open to be deceived and manipulated. So when you don't have that covering, it's easier for you to be deceived and manipulated. When you don't have knowledge and wisdom, it's easier for you to be manipulated and deceived by somebody that does. So obviously in Genesis, Eve didn't have the knowledge and wisdom that that serpent had. It was wiser than her. That's why it was able to manipulate her. Just like with being a hunter. The hunter is wiser than the animal. That's why he's able to hunt him. And I'm going to give you an example. So you have the male deer, the deer feeder, the corn pile, the deer family, and the stalking hunter. All right. So about 2 weeks ago, since it's the off season, you know, Blackbeard is a real red stick landowner. So what I'm doing right now is I'm going to get all my off season hunting equipment. And recently I went and got a hunting stand, and I went and got a deer feeder. OK. Now, what's going to happen is that I'm going to put corn and different types of food in the deer feeder. And throughout our estate, I'm going to go put that deer feeder down and put plots of food up. And what's going to happen is that throughout the year, the deer are going to go and eat those plots of food and those corn. And while they're doing that, I'm going to be sitting back watching them on camera, stalking them, looking to see what time of day do they come, in what order are they coming. Does the big male deer come first? Or does he send his son in first and then the rest of the family come when it's all cool? In other words, I'm evaluating them. I'm taking notes. And what's going to happen is that when the fall and the winter comes this year, when it's getting cold, Blackbeard is going to go put on his hunting clothes. And you know what's going to happen? Blackbeard is going to start hunting the deer. So I'm fattening them up only to slaughter them in the wintertime. So understand that when you take the Faustian pact, whatever hunting demonic spirit that you are in an arrangement with, or whatever hunting demonic humans that you've made a Faustian pact with, they're only fattening you up to slaughter you in the wintertime. So it's like with Puffy Combs. When you took the Faustian pact, Puffy Combs, they provided you the millions of dollars. They were letting you get away with whatever you were getting away with back then. Different type of trouble you was getting in, they would always come and save you. They always gave you good publishing contracts, good financing, good protection legally. All types of luxuries, material comfort, security that could be provided when you take the Faustian pact. And they did it for about 30 years because Puffy been eating for a long time. But while he was eating, that was no different than when I'm feeding the deer all year and I'm putting down the plots of corn and I'm fattening them up. Do you really think that I went and bought that stand and that corn just because I'm nice and I want to feed the deer? Why would I waste my money on feeding those deer if I didn't have an end game? So I'm only fattening them up for the slaughter. And it's the same way when you take the Faustian pact. Whatever demonic entity or demonic human being that you took the Faustian pact with, whatever resources or comfort that it's giving you up front, trust me, that's just the corn that you're eating to be fattened up on. So in the end, they can slaughter you when you good and seasoned. And that's what you're seeing now with Puffy. That's where the public humiliation comes in. You see? So that's what happens. And another thing that happens too is that when the deer come in, the big male deer with the antlers, those 9-point, 12-point antlers, he's going to come in and he's going to be eating the food. And you know what's going to happen? His family's going to follow him. His female deer wife is going to follow him. And all the male and female deer children, they're going to follow him. Because the male leader is the family's going to respect his knowledge. So they're going to think that, well, if he's going to eat over there, then it must be okay. So when you wonder things on how, like, well, why do these so-called celebrities and entertainers, when they make a Faustian pact, why is it that one of their family members always seem to die? You know, like Jennifer Hudson, you know, she signed, you know, and became an entertainer. And she had a very, very tragic situation happen to her family. And it ain't just her, it's a lot of them, you know. We could be naming for days, but in other words, it's like when they go and start eating from the corn pile, aka when they take the Faustian pact, not only are they fattening for the slaughter, but your loved ones, they follow you. That's why you have these extra casualties. Because the male deer, he don't never come alone. He always brings his family with him. So when you're gluttonous and when you're selfish and when you do things just to make yourself come up, and you think that the resources you have now, that you're going to just use them to protect yourself and your loved ones, but you're willing to step on other people's toes to do that, that's a form of selfishness. But in the end, when you get slaughtered, they get slaughtered as well. Just like how when Puffy Combs, notice how when they kicked in his doors, Homeland Security, didn't y'all see some of his sons outside handcuffed as well, being publicly humiliated? Bill Cosby, didn't he have a situation when his son was killed? Michael Jordan, didn't he have a situation when his father was killed? So the family follows you to the corn pile. They follow you when you take the Faustian pact. And they're going to be fattened up for the slaughter as well. So this was just a video to provide some wisdom that, you know, I wanted to distribute because, you know, I was just sitting back and thinking about some things I've been hearing different people talk about. And, you know, some people in this life may be lost and some people are seeking more knowledge and understanding on what their purpose is here and just, you know, knowledge on the life game itself. But this is that tape. You know, this is the path of righteousness versus the path of Luciferianism part 2. The path of no sorrow added versus the Faustian bargain, you know. So understand that just like Arthur Blank, you know, he created the field You know what I'm saying? He did all his work. And during game day, it's all on the Falcons on the field. Kirk Cousins, he got to go out there and get the job done. It's the same way in your life. The Almighty Creator has set the stage. You got your family. You got the earth environment. You got the skills that you was blessed with. He didn't give you the full finished product, but he gave you the seed. You've been given everything you need. And the people that you need to meet in your life, you know, the loved one that you want to meet one day, the so-called man or woman of your dreams or whatever, or those business partners that's going to help you take off. All those things have already been set in place in life, but you have to start going about making, you know, certain choices and decisions so you can reach your destination. And it's the last thing I'm going to leave you with. Remember, when it comes to material comfort in this life, which is something that all of us seek, and there's nothing wrong with that, but it can be provided to you by the Luciferian path of selfishness or the path of no sorrow added. So it's up to you to decide which one you want. So it's your boy, you know, Blackbeard, you know, and the whole Red Stick family, and hopefully you learn from it. So stay tuned. We out.